All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Baaz, and I am a student success coach in the Student Success and Dream Center at Rio Hondo College. And today I have the privilege of hosting this online workshop. And the name of the workshop is Balling on a Budget. So, really, the main concept or the main idea behind this workshop is budgeting and the way that we're spending our money and the way that we're managing our finances. So what I'm gonna start um, doing is just share my screen. I'm gonna start sharing my screen with all of you so that you're able to see the presentation. Just give me just 1 second. Okay, so you're able to see now in part what I'm doing. So like I mentioned, the name of our presentation today or workshop today will be Balling on a Budget. So before I get started, I do want to ask that all of you take out a sheet of paper and a pen as we're going to be, not just taking some notes, but we're going to be trying to make this somewhat of an interactive workshop, even though this workshop has already been recorded. So go ahead and pause this video if you need some time to get a paper and a pen, and because we're going to go ahead and get started pretty soon. All right, so like I mentioned, the name of our workshop today will be Balling on a Budget. And this topic, budgeting and managing your finances, believe me, it's one of the most important topics um, to have and to discuss about. But it's also, the idea of budgeting is one of the most important skills that as a student you want to be able to have, but also as an individual. As a student, it can be a little hard, right, to go to college and kind of manage the way that you're spending, since when we're new in college, we're trying to not just understand how college works, but also a part of that is the finances. How are the finances going to plan out? So as a student in college, we need to be intentional in our spending. As an individual, and out there in society, it's also important to know how to budget appropriately, um, for many reasons. One of those being is that if you do plan to stay in the state of California, as California is one of the most expensive states in the US. So being in California and having, different expenses, it's also important to know how to budget so that you kind of try to give yourself a lifestyle that you always wanted, but at the same time being mindful of what is it that I'll be needing, to kind of have that life that I want to give myself. One of those being is, what kind of skills do I want to make sure that I have to be able to manage my finances. So those are all great reasons, right, to learn about the topic and to really invest yourself in developing the skill, managing your money. Hopefully at the end of the presentation, you'll be able to meet the following learning outcomes. So the first one is students will be able to understand how to budget their finances. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, you kind of have a better idea of how to manage the way that you're spending, or how to manage your money basically. Also, students will be able to identify different tools to meet their budgeting needs and monitor their expenses. This presentation, towards the end, will be covering some of the tools that you can use to manage your expenses. Last but not least, I hope that all of you are able to identify the difference between a debit card and a credit card. So these are very, they look the same, right? But they're very different in essence and really where the money's coming from. So we'll be discussing a little bit about those two items as well. What is a budget? So I'm going to ask you to take a few minutes and jot down, what comes to mind when I say the word budget. So go ahead and use your paper and pen and write down what concepts, what ideas, what images, are coming to your mind when I say the word budget or budgeting. So some of those things may be obviously money, dollar signs, expenses, maybe clothes, maybe some things that you know that you want to, treat yourself with. Food may also come into the picture, as all those items should be considered as part of our budgeting planning. So go ahead and take a few minutes to do that. So what is budget? What is a budget? So it's a way we manage our finances, a way that we're managing our money intentionally, so that as money comes in, we already know exactly this is how I'm going to be spending my money. It happens to many of us. I include myself in the picture. Sometimes I know that I just got my check, right? And I'm very, very happy that I got my check. However, um, close to like, maybe 2 weeks or so, I'm like, okay, I got my money. And then I realize that most of it is gone. Then I kind of begin to wonder, hey, where did my money go? What did I do with my money, right? So to prevent that from happening, we need to learn beforehand, how is it that we're going to be spending our money. That's really what budgeting is. So usually I have an activity that's very interactive. Even though we're not going to do it, as we're not in a class setting, I still want to go over the link that I provided here, just because it offers good information. And I also just kind of want to walk you all through what the activity looks like. The main point of the activity is to kind of give you an idea about numbers, but also about lifestyle. So there are a series of questions that you have to answer, and the questions are related to housing, utilities, food, entertainment, transportation, insurance, education, savings. So basically, as you progress through the questions, it's going to ask you to think about what kind of lifestyle you want to give yourself. So an interesting and cool thing about this activity is that you can take it and kind of, place yourself as you are now as a student, and what kind of expenses you're going to have. Or you can also take this activity and pretend you're kind of, a version of you in the future. And that version of you in the future would expect a different lifestyle, right? Or semi different lifestyle. So go ahead and take this activity as if you were now a student, or you can choose to be, the future you, and answer the questions according to what you would like in the future. You can pause this video if you want to go ahead and take the time to go through the activity now, or you can do it at the end of the presentation. Your choice. So basically, like I mentioned, so it takes you through all these different ways of like basically spending your money, right? What I like about this is that at the end of the activity, you'll be able to see, really, depending on the kind of expenses you're going to have, it's going to give you a monthly spending number. So basically, how much you're spending per month if you want to have that lifestyle. But it's really cool because it also gives you the annual salary that you would need to give yourself that lifestyle, if that makes sense. So it's really cool. That's why I say it was really cool to take it as if, even in the future, whatever your expectations are at, with regards to your lifestyle, because then that kind of tells you what you should be doing now, or it hints you at what you should be doing now, so that you can eventually, give yourself that life in the future, given that it gives you an annual salary. I'm going to go back now to the presentation. So hopefully you get the opportunity to go through uh, the activity. So after the activity, we would have a discussion. So you can view the questions before the activity or after the activity. And the questions here are geared towards helping you reflect more on the purpose of the activity, but also what you got out of the activity. So some of the things that I want you all to start thinking about is, what do you think about your results? Was the monthly spending what you thought it was going to be? What about the annual salary? Does that, ring a bell for you? Does that let you know that, you know, you're doing good things now and eventually you're going to get to where you eventually want to get to make sure that you're giving yourself a lifestyle? What about, so do the results influence your current and future spending plans? So knowing how expensive life is in California, is that impacting the way, your housing is going to look like, or the way you're going to spend when you go out and shop? So think about those things as well. How do you think your spending habits will change once you finish college and have a family, right? So it's one thing to think about ourselves as individuals and what we want to spend on and the things that we want to treat ourselves with. But then, obviously, if you do want to get married, if you plan to someday provide for your family, or mom and dad, additionally, obviously, kids as well. So, those are other things, right, that we have to um, think about. It's interesting because I was talking to a student the other day and he was like, it's funny how just life gets a lot more expensive when you have a girlfriend. And that's a big yes. That's a big yes, that actually happens, right? So when you are in relationships, as you probably will be in the future, right, those also impact your spending habits. And then lastly, also think about how can you prepare for the kind of living style you want to enjoy in the future, right? So all of you are doing a great job by pursuing your education, getting your degree. Hopefully that's going to have a great positive impact on your annual income, right? And so based on the annual income is kind of like the lifestyle you're going to be able to give yourself. So where does your money come from? We've talked lots about so far about, how you're spending your money, but and about the idea of budgeting, but where is money coming from in the first place? So allowance, if you still get some allowance, scholarships, right? So how many of you are students that have been applying for scholarships and getting scholarships? That's a great way to be having money coming in into your bank account. Work income, right? So if all of you work or some of you work, obviously you're having money coming in from work. School grants, so kind of like the financial aid you're getting um, at Rio Hondo College is another income that you must consider. So where does money go? It's interesting how money doesn't come from a lot of places, but money can go to different places, right? Depending on our spending habits and depending on our behavior, really. So, food, that's obviously a necessity, right? So, we need food to function every single day. Bills, right? So, paying for your phone, paying if you pay rent, that's another big one that you have kind of have to consider. If you like to do shopping, I'm a person that likes to do shopping every now and then. So that's sometimes where my money goes, right? Coffee, if you're a college student and you're a coffee addict or you need coffee to function because you have super long assignments, that's also where money is going. Or the maintenance of a car, purchasing a car insurance. So all of these different places, right, where money can go um, for specifically for us as students. We can't talk about budgeting without talking about wants and needs, right? So, budgeting helps you determine what resources you need versus those that you want. It's one thing to say I want something, but it's another thing to say I need something. So, what are the differences amongst those, right? So, a need, it's something that you need to function or survive. So, an example of that could be food, obviously, water. A want, on the other hand, it's something that you desire. It's not necessarily needed for you to function, but it's something that you will like a Coach purse or coffee every single day from Starbucks. That's more of a want, right? So, it's important to become aware of what is a want and what is a need. So, and then be able to manage, be able to balance those as well. So, these are just some tips to kind of decide amongst your wants and your needs. So first make a list of what you would like to save for. Attention, save for, right? So whatever income you're getting, what you're, kind of saving in, kind of holding in your bank account, make a list, right, of the items that you would like to save for. Second, identify the needs and the wants. Out of all the items in the list, what are some things that those are definitely needs versus some things that are, this is definitely something I just want to treat myself with. And then three, obviously prioritize your needs. And then if money is left, prioritize your wants. And obviously all of this doesn't have to happen within only one paycheck, right? The beauty about budgeting is that you can do that on the regular basis. You can do that with, every month or every 2 weeks that you're getting your paycheck. So I actually have a video that I want to show all of you. It kind of gives you a better idea too of what needs and wants are. So we'll take a moment to look at the video.
Needs versus wants. Food and water, shelter, clothing, these are our basic needs. But do they really stop there? What do you really need? Do you need a phone? What about a smartphone? Do you need a tablet for school or a computer? Everyone is going to answer those questions differently because every person has different wants and needs. Just because you really want something, that doesn't mean you need it. So how do you determine what is truly a need and what is just a really big want? Try asking yourself some basic questions. If I didn't have this item, would I still be able to function in life and keep up with my commitments? Or will not having this item severely affect my life in a negative way? For example, if I didn't have a car, getting to work would be a major challenge. But does this mean I need a brand new car? Or will the dependable car I have work? After you've spent some time determining what in your life is a want and what is actually a need, you have to figure out how many of those wants you can actually afford. Because there's no way we can afford all the things we want at once. Give them a ranking and start saving.
Okay, so that was just a minute video to kind of give you more of an idea of what is a need and what is a want. So a great way, as you can see, is making lists, right? And I think also taking some time to be honest with ourselves. So something that comes to mind is, obviously for many of us, I'm including myself because I'm also a college student. So I'm currently doing my master's in counseling at Cal State Long Beach. And to me, sometimes I look at coffee and I'm like, that is a need. I need to have coffee, right? Because I have all these homework assignments and work and trying to balance my time, but I also need energy, right? So, however, even though it's a need, it doesn't mean that getting Starbucks coffee or getting 7 Leaves coffee or Coffee Bean coffee every single day is okay, right? So there's other ways to strategize, such as making my own coffee, for example. And then that way I don't have to be spending like those $5 every single day on Starbucks. Moving forward, so how to budget? Obviously, there's different ways of budgeting and different tools that we can utilize to manage our finances that is fairly easy. One example that I like to actually use myself is our spreadsheets or a worksheet, what it's being called here for the purpose of the presentation. And I really like this template just because it kind of divides the expenses, right? But also on the top, if you see, it provides you space so that you consider your income. So essentially, pretty straightforward. You're considering your income, but you're also considering your expenses, such as academic expenses, living expenses, and personal expenses. So you can start off by thinking, really, what is my budget, which is the second column? What is it that's coming in? What have I already designated for that expense, right? For that line. And in reality, or the third column, in like what did I actually ended up spending, or how much did I ended up spending, and then differences. So the last column, which kind of allows you to see if there was any money left over, or if you should redistribute the way your income is coming in amongst these living expenses or academic expenses, personal expenses. So it really gives you an idea of what amount of money is coming in, but also how you're spending your money. So this is just a great idea to consider. Budgeting wisely. What are some of the practices you can start doing now that can make a huge difference, excuse me, in the way that you're preparing to manage your expenses? So you can start off by recording your expenses. So take a notebook, right, or a budget sheet, such as the one that I just showed you all, or an online app, which I'm going to talk a little bit about in the future. So basically, record your expenses. What are some things that you're buying? You know, what are the things that you're utilizing and you're constantly going to the store for? Organize your records. So obviously, you get receipts. Don't throw those away until you record those on your notebook or your application or your budget sheet. Remember, small items make a huge difference. And that I think applies in many, many different ways, right? So I have a tendency sometimes to go to Target and, oh, I need to get this. Oh, I went to Target, but then I forgot to get this. And so I need to go back again, right? So those are expenses. Obviously, those are still expenses, but sometimes that's how money goes and goes, and then I just all of a sudden don't have a clue how I spent all my money because I have receipts that I threw away, and it was worth small items, right? So keep your receipts, record the amounts and the items you've been buying so that you can kind of get an idea of how much you're spending. Create a routine, so make this a good habit. Learn to say no to things that you don't need, right? But once again, to items or activities that are not necessary for you to function. Once again, going back to that video, right? So what are some things that you know for sure you're not going to need? And I provided an example of going out with friends often, right? Yeah, maybe Fridays, but it doesn't have to be every day of the week, or it doesn't have to be even every Friday, depending on how much you're making or what your income really looks like. So think about that. And obviously, by saying no, we're learning how to prioritize, how to really take those decisions that are best, not just for us, but also best for our wallets. Some additional tips that I have for all of you that have made a huge difference for me in my life as a student is, maybe perhaps consider using public transportation. Depending on how far school is, maybe sometimes you can walk, right? And it doesn't only have to be with college or school. It could also be if you're going to work or if you're going to a store, fill in the blank. Depending on where you are situated and where you're planning to go, walking may be appropriate. Taking a bus maybe appropriate as well. Carpooling with others, I think specifically for college, in addition to doing carpooling, you can ride a bike. And these are all kind of cool ways to kind of avoid traffic too in California, which is pretty cool. So consider what are some other options, right? Because honestly, having your car or owning your car, paying car insurance for your car, it's a lot of like expenses, right? Another thing, mobile apps such as Gas Guru and Gas Buddy can help you find the cheapest gas deals around. So if you have a car, because having a car is a necessity for you, go ahead, right? But try to find ways to spend less on gas, because we know gas, it is kind of expensive. Majority of the money, believe it or not, goes also towards food. and buying food every single day. I know that I can blame myself for that because that's something that I used to do very often, but try meal prepping. So preparing your meals before you go to college so that you're just not buying anything out there, and honestly, many of the times that we don't prepare our meals at home, not only we're spending more out there by buying those on the spot, but then we're also most likely not buying the healthiest, right? So maybe consider meal prepping, and you can even have this conversation with your parents. If your parents are willing to help you make a little extra for dinner so that you can take some the following day to school to your classes, it'll be great. It's going to save you some money. Bring your own snacks. Obviously make your own coffee too, which is something that I had already mentioned. Making your own coffee can really save you a lot of money, right? Because think about it, Starbucks or any other coffees, you kind of end up spending close to $5 a day if that's a habit you have. Imagine how much that is in a month, right? And but imagine if you're not really doing that and you're actually saving your money and making your own coffee. Those are, it's extra money coming in your way, by you basically just regulating the way that you're spending. Additional budgeting tips: look for discounts. There's many apps too out there and many different web pages that you can utilize to find different discounts. Avoid overspending, and then buy the exact amount, I'm sorry, that you need. A lot of the times we go to the supermarket, and number one thing we do wrong is go when we're hungry. If you go when you're hungry, you're gonna try to buy all these different items you actually don't need, and then you end up having a car that looks kind of like the one I'm showing here, very, very packed with some things that we may not need or may not even eat. Um, so avoid overspending when you can. Buy the exact amount that you need. And honestly, all of the tips require for you to be honest with yourselves, right? Because sometimes you're like, no, I need this, like I really need this, but in reality, you didn't need it, right? So just being honest with yourself is also a great way to budget wisely. So, as a student, also budgeting your financial aid is an essential skill that you need. So, as a college student, there's different kinds of financial aid that you can receive. Um, One of the things that I want you all to consider is to do work studies. So, this is actually a way to gain money as you're working for an office, for a department on campus. So, work study allows students to work on campus. Half of the salary is paid by the college, and the other half is paid by the federal government. So consider doing this. So if actually in the future you're considering about working on campus, go ahead and have a conversation with the financial aid office, as they can furthermore assist you with the process and what that really looks like. Also consider deferring your Pell Grant until you transfer to a four-year university. um, so something that I tell students to think about is all the different kinds of financial aid that they can get at Rio Hondo. So you can qualify for the bug waiver or the Rio Promise, right? And have basically your tuition paid for. So that way you're saving your Pell Grant for once you transfer to a four-year university. That's just a great way to not just budget now, but also kind of manage your financial aid in the future once you are at a four-year university. Avoid loans if possible. If you know that your tuition is being covered and all you need is to get money or for books, for example, right? So maybe perhaps doing some hours of work will be a good idea. Basically, if you don't need loans because your expenses are not that much, don't take out loans until you actually need it. Majority of the student population decide to take out loans once they transfer to a four-year university, just because four-year universities are a lot more expensive. Do not spend all your financial aid money at once. Save for the summer. So I've actually had a few conversations with students who receive their financial aid money. Their tuition has already been covered, but they actually end up getting some financial aid money. And their idea is, okay, I want to buy myself a car. Like that's a necessity. Like I really need to have a car, right? And so some of the questions I ask, so your parents are not able to give you a ride? And sometimes the answer has been, actually, yeah, they can give me a ride. And so I'm like, okay, so what are some of the places that you need to go to for which you need a car? Um, and so students sometimes don't know how to respond to that. So really think about how you're spending that money. If you really, really need a car, what I recommend students is to kind of get a part-time job, start saving in advance, and then maybe use some of that financial aid money to buy a car. But I wouldn't directly recommend students to spend all of their financial aid money at once by buying a car. So just some things to be mindful about and to be intentional about, so that at the end of the day, you're not spending all your financial aid and then you realize, hey, I didn't even buy my books. So hopefully that's not a situation you run into. More budgeting tips. So look for student discounts. There's a lot of discounts for movies, museums, even Spotify, technology, theme parks, and restaurants that you can get as a student. So if you go to the student union on campus and ask about discounts for some of these items that I just mentioned, you'll be surprised at how many cool things they find for you that you would qualify for a discount. So think about those as an option as well, getting discounts. Student Amazon Prime, that's another great discount that you can have. Often students utilize Amazon to buy their books online, and because you need the book here in a timely manner, doing the student Amazon Prime is a great idea. And there's also a great discount, obviously, because you're a student. So I won't be clicking on the links here, but those are two web pages you can visit to find about discounts and what you could possibly be qualifying for. Applications. So budgeting apps. We're going to be discussing Mint, YNAB, which is the Y here, Pocket Guard, and Wally. So what are basically the best benefits out of all of these? So if you're an individual that doesn't like to do budgeting sheets or budgeting spreadsheets, go ahead and try the apps. You'll be surprised at how much you can get from these. And these are actually free. Obviously, there's some applications out there for which you need to pay for, but these are actually free. So it helps create a personal budget, monitor your day to day and month to month spending. Easy to look at, right? So there's some may have a spreadsheet that comes with it, but some of those have charts and graphs. So if you're a visual person, you'll see really, for example, where your money is being spent, and how you're utilizing and spending your money, basically. So charts and graphs. So it helps with paying for bills and reaching your saving goals. So all of these, majority of these applications, that individuals would also like to start saving up their money. So they also offer um, some of that functionality in the application. And it helps plan also unexpected expenses. I cannot stress that enough, because if you know exactly how much money is coming in and exactly where money is being allocated to what expenses, then based on previous history, you kind of know if all of a sudden you run into this emergency, then you kind of know from which area you'll be able to grab a few dollars or whatever it is that you need to cover that emergency. So go ahead and try those free apps. Another big behavior I'm going to name as a student is buying books. Obviously, we cannot run away from buying books. This is something we all as students have to do, but we can be very intentional about how we from where we buy our books, how we buy our books. Majority of the times you'll be able to find the books that you have to buy as a student from different websites. So in addition to the bookstore on campus, which that's always an option for you, you can do Amazon, checkbooks, book renter, Valori books. So all of these websites are great websites because they provide a variety of different textbooks, and the prices are much more lower compared to the bookstore prices. So go ahead, as you're starting, your journey here at Rio Hondo, or you've been here now for a while, you'll be surprised at how much more cheaps the books can get when you're buying them from these sites. So go ahead and try those out as well. Strategize your finances that way. Okay, so now we're getting to the debit cards and the credit cards. I said this before, obviously the cards look completely similar, but they are actually very, very different in relation to where the money's coming from. Debit cards are actually linked to your personal checking or savings account. You can open your account at a local bank, right? So there are a great variety of banks out there that you can choose from. So essentially, how it starts off is you go to a bank, you open your account. That's where you're depositing your income, whether it be, the income from work or an allowance that you're getting. So you're going and you're depositing that there. If you have direct deposit from your work, that's where your money is going. Then you'll get a debit card. So essentially, the money you're spending is the money that you're putting into your account. So you're spending within what you have in the account. This is exactly why budgeting is important, because you're having the control over what's going into your account. So then you should also try to control the way that money's coming out of your account. Overspending leads to overdraft fees for up to you can pay up to $35 or higher if you're overspending, right? Because once again, this is money that you have. Being aware of what you have at any given time is important, because the most embarrassing thing that can happen is that you go to the store and you're trying to swipe your card, and your card is just not swiping and it's being rejected. Why? Because you ran out of money. You didn't even notice. So once again, this is why budgeting is very important. A credit card. A credit card is actually not linked to your personal or checking or savings account. So it's basically credit money that you're receiving. And obviously, your credit can be limited. So a credit card is actually something you apply for. New card holders are issued a credit card of between 250 and 1,500. Um, Kind of just, to kind of start off your credit, the way that you're building up credit. So this is where majority of folks start. Interest rates will vary. So depending really on the card, on the provider of the card, is also the kind of interest rates that you're going to have. So for example, Visa cards may offer 0% of interest for the first 6 months, and then charge 17% of interest in the balance that hasn't been paid. So think about those things as well. Um, Not everyone can qualify for a credit card. Sometimes banks are afraid that folks won't be able to pay. But regardless, I will say that although there is, risk associated with credit cards, because in reality, you're spending money that is not yours, right? And then you kind of have to be intentionally spending the money and being mindful of how you're spending the money and how you're going to pay back the money, so that, you don't overdraft yourself with all those interest rates. So just be mindful of that. I do have a video here. It's a very short video, and it goes more into detail about the differences among debit and credit cards.
Gone are the days of carrying cash. Now we look to credit and debit cards for our purchases. They may look the same, but how we use them are entirely different. A debit card links directly to your bank account. If you use a debit card to buy something, the money is taken immediately out of your checking account. Debit cards give you quick access to your money via ATMs with zero interest and no monthly payments or late fees. But beware, if you're a victim of identity theft or your debit card is stolen, it can take weeks to months for your bank to get that money replaced. If you try to spend without any available funds, your bank may let you, but you'll deal with overdraft fees. A credit card is a loan. When using a credit card, you are borrowing money to pay for your purchases. You can either make a minimum payment or pay the full balance owed each month. Most credit cards come with additional rewards such as travel points and hotel discounts. This is helpful when making large purchases. A credit card also builds your credit, which is important for bigger investments, like a house. Credit cards are useful to pay for emergencies such as car repairs or home damage. But keep in mind, credit cards come with fees. For example, a late fee can be applied if you don't pay your bill on time, which can affect your credit score. Most cards charge interest and some may come with an annual fee, so look out for those rates when applying. Consider your lifestyle to decide which one is right for you. Or why not have both? Visit Mint in your app store. We bring together everything from balances and bills to your credit score and more. It's your financial life in one place that's easy to understand.
So it even mentions the Mint application at the end, in case you want to try it out, which we already discussed about. So yeah, so those are some additional items you should be considering with credit cards. Like I mentioned, although there is risk associated with it because you have to really know how you're going to pay out whatever you borrowed. Credit is needed, right? So especially if you want to even rent a house, rent an apartment. Nowadays, I've noticed that they check credit, but obviously for owning purposes. So if you want to buy a car, if you want to own your house in the future, building up that credit score is very important and it's necessary, basically. So I want you to take some time to write down on the sheet of paper two or three takeaways from the presentation or from our workshop today. What are two or three, even more ideas or more concepts that came to mind as you were, going through the workshop? What are some things that you learned from the workshop? What are some things that now, you're feeling like you have to do differently to better manage your finances? So you can pause the video at this point, or you can keep going and do this after the presentation. Your choice. So I'm going to finish with the quote that says, "A budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went." I think I've said this a couple of times throughout our presentation. We kind of know where money's coming from. We actually should be knowing how much money we're, putting in weekly or bi-weekly or monthly. However, we also should have power or have power over really knowing where your money's going. Because the worst thing, once again, is if you go to the store, your card gets rejected because you don't have enough funds, or worse yet, it doesn't get rejected and then you get charged more for overspending. So just more to think about. That's basically it. I hope that all of you had the opportunity to learn a lot. Hopefully, also, you have some questions. Questions are always good to have. Go ahead and feel free to reach out to me if you wish to do so. My email is mbaaz@riohondo.edu. So if you do have questions, concerns, or comments, go ahead and feel free to send those out to me. Also, as part of this presentation or workshop, please don't forget to provide your feedback on the presentation just for the purpose of improving the workshop material and obviously myself as a presenter. So I'll be this link for the survey in which you provide your feedback will also be provided to all of you as a student. Once again, thank you for your time. Have a great day.